John here with Ripewave Audio, back a sixth time with Sony's flagship AV receiver, the $3,200 STR-AZ7000ES. And this time to look at their dual center speaker configuration. And this is something that we're excited about trying out. We've never tried two center speakers in our room before, and it has this capability, so we're going to explore that. This video continues our series with this Sony receiver. First video in this series that we did was overview that compared against its nearest competitors, and then we did an unboxing. And the second video, we got into the setup, including the calibration that we do with D.C.A.C 9, their proprietary room calibration system. In the third video, we looked at user experience, including the sound modes, including their 360 spatial audio mapping. And then in the fourth video, we did a sound comparison with our ABC switch, and we looked at how the sound in comparison with every other AV receiver and processor that we have looked at in-house over about the last year. And then the last one we did was an exploration of the 360 reality audio format and really how it compares and works with the 360 spatial sound mapping. So now on to the dual center channel speakers on this product. And of course, if you bring up the manual for the Sony, either the 3000, the 5000, or the 7000, they may show you a list of speakers such as this. This diagram shows 32 speakers hooked up. Of course, you can't hook up this many speakers to one of these units. Depending on the model that you have, you're limited. So the 7000, you're limited to 13 speakers. The 5000, 11 speakers, and the 3000, you're limited to 9 speaker configurations. And they say 2 subwoofers, but it's really one common subwoofer output wired in parallel. Just the convenience of having 2 outputs. Of course, you could do that with a Y splitter just as easily. So what are we looking at here? Of course, the goal here is if you don't have a projector screen that's an acoustically transparent screen where you can mount your center speaker behind the screen and have it come out, you'll have a less than ideal positioning of the voices that usually come out the center channel. And so with a traditional television, the voices may be coming slightly below the screen or slightly above the screen, depending on where your center channel is. Sony tries to address this problem with 3 different types of solution. The first one that they had was called center lift. And they said, well, if you're using height speakers in the front, we will send some of that center channel information up to the height channels, left and right, and we'll blend them. The next thing that they give you is an Acoustic Center Sync with the television, but it only works with Bravia televisions that support this. So if the Bravia television has a special input on it, then it will use the speakers in the Bravia. Of course, it's not doing full range. It's sending enough high frequency information there to give the illusion that the center channel information is lifted up and is like coming from the screen. Although the center speaker, which is typically mounted below it in this case, it will fill that center channel mounted below it will provide that extra range of information that usually comes from it. In this case, which I think is the most ideal configuration, involves 2 center channel speakers, one mounted below the television as traditional and one mounted above the television. And then it attempts to blend those to come out with that illusion virtually coming out from the center of the television and centering those dialogue, those voices that are coming from your movies or whatever content that you're watching. Prior to the other day, we didn't have a second center channel mounted. I did realize that I do have a second center channel. We had kind of blown the crossovers in a way with that Anthem processor that we had in the Anthem ARC calibration, blew that one out. but there's still enough quality coming out. I thought, well, this might at least give that illusion by using it, even though the high frequency isn't coming out, let's say, much above 2000 hertz. So it's okay, let's mount that one above. And how we're going to do that? Well, I got clever here. I do have a couple of feet behind my television. This is on a wall bracket. And I took a couple of bar stools and a plank of wood from a shelving unit that I have and a cardboard box. And I got this thing mounted in a good position, as you can see, just above the television. And we have our other one. And they're both the same speaker. They're Pulse LSI Cs from the early 2000s. And so those are set up. So we've got the thing mounted. I use external amplifiers for everything else. But for this extra channel, I said, well, I can use the amplifier built into the 7000, and that won't be a problem. So that's what I did. When you look at the manual, they show you how you can do this, although they don't quite show the configuration that I have here. I have a 7.1.4. Actually, I have two subwoofers, but I wanted to be able to show you how it would really map out. So let's go look at the actual configuration in the 7000. So we go and hit the setup button. We go into easy setup. And even if you've run this before, unless you have the older firmware, it will let you run this again. And that's what we are able to do, is you can go back and rerun your auto calibration if you've done already when you add the second center channel. So when we do this, we hit up to auto calibration. It's going to tell you some basic information. So we're going to hit start, and you have a choice of 1 or 2 presets. This is where I felt like I really wish I had more than 2 presets. But take the what you think is best and one that you're going to want to preserve, and don't touch that one, and use another one that is willing to wipe out. Another option you have is you can actually save configurations on another menu page and reload them. And that's also recommended. This is a tip that the installers use to get customers back to known good settings. They'll do a save when they're done calibrating the whole system. They'll put it on a USB stick and tape that to the back of the unit, and that's their emergency kit. You might want to do the same. So here I'm using preset 1 because I know preset 2 is my best known good with just one center speaker. And I'm going to use preset 1 for 2 center speakers. Of course, it would have made more sense if I did it the other way around, 1 being 1 center and 2 being 2 centers. But anyhow, we're here. We don't have wireless speakers. We're going to skip that. The first thing they're going to ask you is, are you going to use a Sony Bravia TV with a center, an S center speaker in jack? No, we're not. We're going to use a second center speaker. So we're going to hit skip here. Then it's going to walk you through wherever you have to make a choice in your speaker configuration. Now, it's making assumption you have front speakers and so forth. But it's going to ask you the first set of questions on what are you going to do with the surround backs? Because you're limited to 13 channels, this is the first place where you have to make a choice. Is it for surround backs or a front bottom? We're going to cover front bottom in another video. So there will be a part 7. Front B speakers, biamplification, zones, and all that. So surround back. Let's say we're going to do surround back here. And also, it's going to next take you to the heights. It's just going to be a yes or no situation. We're going to say, yes, we do have height 1s. Height 2s, again, a yes, no. So you don't have any compromises here. You can always do a height 2 speaker. The next place you have to make a decision is how you're going to wire up the height 3 terminals on the back. Whether you're using the internal amplifiers or the pre-outs, doesn't matter. It's going to be directing signals to both simultaneously. So that can be height 3s. I don't have a third row of heights. It could be front wides. Well, I'm kind of ready for front wides. Maybe there'll be another video on front wides. Zone speakers, or in our case, for this demo, center 2 speakers. So we're going to select center 2 speakers. Then they present you with your speaker patterns, and you can take your listener level speaker configuration and hit the up or down arrow until you get the configuration you want. So at first you'll see a 7.1. In my case, I have rear surround speakers, whatever you have for your ear level speakers, but you want to hit it again, one more to the up until it's 7.1 or whatever, and center to speaker equals yes. If you don't see that center to speaker equals yes, you don't got it. And of course you have the picture on the screen, which I think is really nice to indicate it is indeed a second center speaker. With that set, you move on to the next choice, which is your heights. In my case, I have 2 rows of in ceiling, one in the front, one in the rear. So I'll do TF plus TR, and that's indicated. Of course, you have choices for the Dolby Atmos reflective speakers or height channels as well. And then you have height middles. So, but again, it's showing you that second channel, center channel saying yes. And then of course you have a way to confirm all this. So it says, I got a speaker pattern of 7.1.4 TF plus TR. That's the type of heights I have. But then it's showing center to speaker equal to yes. That's the key. So this looks good. I'm going to hit next. And it's now going to allow you to see what terminals, if you're using internal amplification, you plug it into. I wish they'd also show you pre-outs in case you're doing pre-outs, but use your imagination here. It's not too bad. Center 1 will go to where it always goes. And then the front and the height 1 and height 2, those are all normal wiring. But for your center 2, this will use the right channel of the height 3 connection. And of course, surround back, we'll use surround back in our case. And then you're all configured. You have to hit back. I wish there was a next from this page, but you have to hit back and then go forward with your calibration, your D.C.A.C calibration. Because we've added a speaker here, we want to rerun D.C.A.C 9. That's what we did. And when that was all configured, I had 2 presets. One that had 2 speakers and the preset 2 that only has 1 center speaker. With that done, I was ready to listen. I put in Ford versus Ferrari, was my demo of this case. What I found was the easiest way to switch between preset 1 and preset 2 to kind of hear the differences is to go to the web page. In this case, mine was based off the IP address 10.0.0.178. I put that on a laptop that was on the same network as the 7000. I got the IP address by hitting the ping button, by the way, underneath this hidden door. And I could switch between the two. Now, sometimes this web page isn't so reactive. I had to click on other parts and then it would finally click in. But ultimately, this was the easier way rather than going to the on-screen display to toggle, because there was a lot of wait and gap. And when you go to on-screen display, your sound goes to 0. So if you want to keep listening with the most continuity, use the web page. And that's what we did. So you're asking me, how did this sound? It sounded pretty good. In fact, you could definitely hear the difference. It definitely lifted it up. And I definitely felt like I wish I could keep this configuration all the time. I think the problem is I have to make some choices, because if I decide to keep the top center speaker here, I can't do other configurations that I want to do. So front wides, I'm planning for front wides. Well, then do I do front wides or center 2? So a few more channels. Again, Sony, I'd really like to see you come out with a processor, maybe a 16 or more channel processor, multi-sub outputs, things like that. That would make things easier. Right now, we got to make some choices, whether I want a third row of heights, whether I want front wides, want the second center channel, and some of us want to do it all. So that's my only gripe, but otherwise this works and it sounds good. I don't know how well it works with the Sony Bravia TVs and just using its internal speakers. albeit that would be the simplest way to go about this, because you don't have to figure out how you're going to mount that top channel. And center speakers are usually fairly heavy and everything. To have a bracket or a shelf or something up there has to be strong enough. What I've done here, this is not something I'm comfortable with. I am nervous about this. Any vibration, that whole thing could come crumbling down. So this is just for temporary listening so we could do this video. This is coming down today after this video because I feel nervous about this without a permanent mount. So I strongly suggest mounting your top center speaker in a very good way. So what are your thoughts? Is this something that you would want to do? Now, we know that Aural 3D also calls for a center height channel. So that could work with it. Whether that's blending in the same way for trying to center the dialogue over the TV, I don't know if it's doing that in all cases if you've configured for a top center height with Aural 3D. If you know that, let me know. But I haven't seen anything that's explicitly coming out with these other products. We'll have to look at the Marantz and the Denon manuals a little more carefully and see if that allows that, or some of the other ones that support Aural 3D. But yeah, and I can't even recall if they fully support the top height center channel. Again, I'll have to look back at the manuals on that. But I do wish more products would support this dialogue blending, because otherwise you're into a projector screen and projector, and that's a lot of investment. But with the LCD screens getting even larger, 100 plus inches, do you actually have enough room above that large screen traditional television to fit a top height center channel? Again, feedback would be welcome. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to take your involvement to the next level, we have our Patreon channel at www.patreon.com/Ripewave. And you can always do a one-time donation. I really appreciate it. That has been increasing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, you can hit that bell notification so you're notified when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.